Hello everyone, welcome to VISHNU IAS. Today we are going to see about Poverty and Shared Prosperity Report by World Bank. This question you can expect in your GS2, where you can expect questions from important international institutions by VISHNU IAS team. Let's see what is there in the news. Okay, World Bank has released its Poverty and Shared Prosperity Report. Okay, so it is a biannual report, that is, it will be revised twice a year. So this World Bank, in its report, it mentions that COVID-19 is adding new poor people to the count. Okay, so already there are poor people. So in that, new poor people have been added into account. Okay, in the sub-Saharan Africa and in the South Asian region. So that was the news. So World Bank, in its biannual Poverty and Shared Prosperity Report, it mentions that COVID-19 it can add, okay, because of this COVID-19 new poor can be added. So how many new poor can be added? 27 to 40 million in sub-Saharan Africa and 49 to 57 million in South Asia region. And who are these new poor? Okay, so who are the new poor? The new poor, they will be urban poor. Okay, be more urban poor, and they will be working in informal services or manufacturing, and very less number in agriculture. So engaged in informal services, manufacturing, and less in agriculture. And these people living they will be living in the urban area where it will be congested living location. Okay, so congested urban settings, and their work and they will be working in the sectors that will be most affected by lockdowns and the mobility restrictions. So people will be whose work will be depend on mobility, where they move from one place to another for their work. Okay, so who depend completely on mobility. Okay, so mainly that kind of work. So the people who are doing those kind of works that are most affected during this lockdown. Okay, so those people will be coming in the new poor. So they will be living in congested urban settings, and they work in the these sectors that are most affected by the lockdown and because of the mobility restrictions. And main key points about this is extreme poverty projection. Okay, so because of this COVID-19, new poors will be added. So more number of extreme poverty will be there in this year. Okay, and this may rise to certain number by 2021, and that too it is depending on the severity of the economic contraction. Okay, economic contraction is reducing, shrinking of economy. Okay, so economic contraction, so depending on the severity of economic contraction, okay, there will be more number of extreme poverty in this year. Okay, so the COVID-19 pandemic, in this it is estimated to push an additional, okay, it is adding number of poor people from 88 million to 115 million people into extreme poverty this year. Okay, extreme poverty people were 88 million, so this year it will be 115 million people will be there in extreme poverty, and it will be a total rising as 150 million. Okay, this will be again raised to 150 million by 2021, and that also it depends upon the severity of the economic contraction. And when you see the percentage of population, so because of the pandemic, and there is a global recession, right? So because of the pandemic and the global recession, this pandemic, it may cause nearly 1.4 percentage of the world's population into extreme poverty. Okay, so the report is about all over the world, right? So all over the world, nearly 1.4 percentage of the people will be in extreme poverty because of the pandemic and the global recession. Okay. Next is extreme poverty. So what is this extreme poverty? Is it is defined as living on less than $1.90 a day. Okay, so if a family is about to live with 1.90, below 1.90 a day, so that they call it as an extreme poverty. Okay, which is really impossible or very difficult to live with that amount, right? So it is defined as a living on less than $1.90 a day, and the World Bank, it measures the poverty lines of $3.20 and $5.50, and also about the multidimensional spectrum. So what does this multidimensional spectrum is? That includes the accessing to the education and few basic infrastructures. Okay, and And next is the increase in rate of poverty. So because of the global extreme poverty, so the poverty rate, okay, so the global extreme poverty rate is projected, okay, it is about to rise by around 1.3 to 9.2% in 2020. And if the pandemic was not there, okay, if this does not happen, if there was no COVID-19, the poverty rate would have been dropped. Okay, it would not been raised, it would have dropped to 7.9% in 2020. But instead of that, because of this pandemic, now the global extreme poverty rate has increased, and it is going to rise by around 1.3 to 9.2% in 2020. And if this pandemic was not there, then it would have been dropped to 7.9%. Next is regions of incidence. Okay, as you see, because of the pandemic, new poors are more now, okay, they are emerging, they can be increased, right? So where these people will be living, so these people will be from those countries which have already high poverty rates. Okay, so these new poor people or the newly poor individuals, they will be from the countries that will have high poverty rates already. Okay, so from countries that already have high poverty rates like sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. Okay, so around 82% of the total poor will be from the middle income countries. Okay, those countries which have middle income. So 82% of the total poor will be from the middle income countries. And when you see the flood prone areas, nearly 132 million of the poor people, they live in mainly in the high flood risk regions only. Okay, as all over the world, if you see, nearly 132 million of the poor people, they live in the high flood risk regions. Okay, so when you see the flood prone areas, so the focus on the flooding in this report, it shows that the floods are one of the most common and severe hazards, mainly in the lower income countries. Okay, so those countries which have very less income or the low income. So in this, especially in the lower income countries, okay, where there are flood risk regions and where there are the poor people living in those high flood risk regions. Okay, so in those countries, you can find those floods are the one of the most and severe hazard this year. So about 132 million of the global poor living in high flood risk regions. And the focus on the flooding in this report, it shows or it reflects that floods are one of the most common and severe hazards, that too mainly in the lower income countries. Reverse of the progress made. Okay, so reverse, because of this pandemic, so the progress is in reverse mode now, right? So as you know, the current increasing poverty is actually the reversal of the achievements made in 2.5 decades. That is from 1990 to 2015. From 1919 to 2015, it's about nearly 2.5 decades. Okay, so in this 2.5 decades, there were few improvements and there were few achievements. Okay, so it was the now this poverty increasing is a reverse of the achievements which were made in the past 2.5 decades. Okay, and extreme poverty rate, it declined to 26%, and it dropped to 10% from nearly 36%. Okay, from 36% it dropped to 10% from 36%. So the extreme poverty rate was declined by 26%. And when you see, during the year 2012 to 17, the growth was inclusive and the income of the poorest 40% of the people grow. Okay, so in the year 2012 to 17, between these years, the growth was there. Okay, so the growth was inclusive. And when you see the income of the poor people, nearly 40% of the poor people income was been grown. Okay, it grew actually. But because of the pandemic, now the progress made has been reversed. Okay, so what are the achievements or what are the improvements that happened earlier? It has been reversed now. So the average global shared prosperity was 2.3% during the period. Next is diminished shared prosperity. Okay, so as you know, average global shared prosperity is in stagnant state. Okay, that is, it is not in move now. Okay, so average global shared prosperity is estimated to be stagnant or even contract, or even it got reduced or shrink over 2019 to 2021. Okay, 2019 to 2021. So why this happens in this period is because of the pandemic, right? So because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and because of that, many people got affected, and the average incomes have been reduced now. So there is a reduced growth in the average income. So because of the reduced growth in the average income, so now the global shared prosperity is either it is stagnant or even um, contract over to 2019 to 2020. Okay, so the shared prosperity, okay, average global shared prosperity is estimated to stagnate or even contract over 2019 to 2021 because of the reduced growth. It has been reduced. Which is reduced? Average income have been reduced now. Shared prosperity. So shared prosperity, how we can define shared prosperity, is defined as the growth in the income of the poorest. Okay, if there is an increase in the or growth in the income of the poorest people of a country's population, that to 40% of the poorest population, 40% of a country's poorest population's income has, if it has raised or if it has grown, so that we call it as shared prosperity. Okay, shared prosperity is defined as the growth in the income of the poorest 40% of a country's population. Okay, so now this has been in stagnant or it is reduced because there is no growth in the average income now. So if there is no development or no growth in the income of the poorest people, then there will not be any development in the prosperity, right? So the global shared prosperity is stagnant or even contract. Okay, so and what is the reason for this is global extreme poverty is the reason. So reason is global extreme poverty, because this global extreme poverty is expected to rise. Okay, so till this time, that is for the past 20 years, the poorest people have been reduced. Okay, and that is the income, average income of the poorest people is at some growth. Okay, so there was the poorest people got reduced for the past 20 years, but because of the global extreme poverty, now for the first time in 20 years, because of this COVID-19, because of the disruption caused by this COVID-19, the global extreme poverty rate has been raised. Okay, so that is the main reason. So global extreme poverty is expected to rise for the first time, okay, for the 20 years because of the disruption caused by COVID-19. Okay, it is increasing the impact of conflict and climate change. So because of the impact of conflict and climate change, what was there was already slowing down the poverty reduction. Okay, so now because of this COVID-19 and the global extreme poverty rate, this has increased the impact of this, and this has also added to that. Now the poverty reduction has been very slow and it is going in reverse. Proposed strategy. So for this, the World Bank has recommended a two-track approach that includes the one is short term, another one is long term strategy. Okay, short run is a short term strategy. So in that short run or short term strategy, that mentioned that without the policy actions, the COVID-19 crisis, it may lead to an increase in the income inequality. So that will result in a world that is less inclusive. And also it says that countries need to prepare for a different economy after COVID-19, that is post COVID-19. All the countries, they should get prepared themselves for a different economy. So that by how they can do this, by allowing the capital, labor, skills and innovation to move into a new businesses and new sectors. So by doing this, they can be able to prepare for a different economy post COVID. So that is a short term, okay, short run or short term strategy. Next is a long run. So that is continuing to focus on the foundational development problems. So they should continue, all the countries should focus on the foundational development problems, and that includes the conflict and climate change as the key areas. So as the conflict and the climate change, including this conflict and climate change as the key areas, the country should continue to focus on the foundational development problems. So that is the long term strategy. Now let's see the poverty in India. So when you take India, so in India the poverty estimation is actually taken out by Niti Aayog's task force. So that they will be calculating it through the calculation of poverty line based on the data. So those data that will be taken by the National Sample Survey Office, that was under the Ministry of Statistics and the program implementation, MOSPI. Okay, so with that, Niti Aayog's task force has calculated the through the Niti Aayog's task force calculation of poverty line. So that is based on the data by the National Sample Survey Office. Okay, next is poverty line estimation in India, that is mainly based on the consumption expenditure. Okay, consumption expenditure, and it is not about the income levels of the individuals. Okay, in the poverty how the poverty line estimation in India is done is, it is completely on the consumption expenditure, and it is not on the income levels. Okay, next is global multidimensional poverty index 2020. So that is, India lifted as many as 270 million people out of multidimensional poverty. Okay, between the year 2005 to 6 and 15 to 16, India has lifted or has given away, or it has helped in the improvement of those people. Okay, so India has lifted as many as 270 million people from the multidimensional poverty between the year like 2005 to 6 and 15 to 16. So between these years, India has helped in the help people come out of the multidimensional poverty. But impact of COVID-19. What is the impact of COVID-19 is, India has lifted as many as people from the multidimensional poverty, but now because of the COVID-19, it has given a very deeper effect or deeper impact, profound impact on the development landscape. Now there is a big impact on the development landscape, and the study finds that on an average the poverty levels will be set back to 3 to 10 years due to COVID-19. So due to COVID-19, the poverty levels will be set back to 3 to 10 years. Okay, so on an average they have found this. Okay, when you see the sustainable development goals, as you all know, the first goal of the SDG is zero poverty by 2030. Okay, so now the sustainable development goals, and you see the index emphasize on measuring and monitoring the progress under the goals to reach the zero poverty by 2030, which is the goal one of the sustainable development goals. So it emphasizes on measuring and monitoring the progress of this SDG. So what the government has done for this, the recent measures taken by the government is, the government has enhanced the social safety programs. So what are the social safety programs is, first is Pradhan Mantri Kishan scheme, so through which the direct benefit transfers like cash transfers have taken place. Next is Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005, so where there will be more liberal financing will be there under this. So that is giving the amount or giving the advance. Okay, that is giving it cash in advance, so advance disbursement and the direct cash grants to the construction workers. And also you see Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, where there will be free and subsidized food grains for all, through which about 800 million people are ensured to get food. Okay, that is 800 million people to ensure food for all. So that is to free and subsidized food grains for all by the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. And also there was the few special economic special economic package of 20 lakh crore, which is equivalent to 10% of the India's GDP, that was under the Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme. So all these schemes you should know in depth. Okay, so know about all these schemes, read about this in deep. Okay, so Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme. Okay, Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme, under this the government has announced a special economic package of 20 lakh crores. So with that it aims in making the country independent against the tough competition in the global supply chain, and that also will help in empowering the poor people, laborers, migrants. These people are the most affected because of COVID-19, as we all know. So because through this Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme, the special economic package that has aimed to make country independent against the tough competition in the global supply chain. Okay, and that also helps in empowering these poor people, laborers and migrants who are most affected by the COVID-19. That's all. Thank you. Thanks for watching. I hope you like this video. If you like this video, click on like button and share it to your friends. And don't forget to subscribe our channel. Do subscribe our channel and join our Telegram channel link to get infos about the daily current affairs and to get the value added materials. Thank you.